Sure, sure.
Right. Shall we start?
Sure.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Pradnya, and I'm a PRM 39 candidate, IRMAN, proud IRMAN, I should say. And it gives me immense pleasure to be hosting this event for today. Welcome all of you to IIA IRMAN Talks. And today we are going to have a talk with by Mr. Raj Gyawali. He is from PRM 12 and is a founder of Social Tours. He holds over 2 decades of experience in responsible tourism. And personally, for me, the topic for today, which is transformational and regenerative travel, a future, is very interesting topic because all of us love traveling, and that traveling is also one of the major contributors to India's GDP. So without further ado, let us start with the session. This session will be moderated by Shivani. She is also from PRM 12. And let's start. Before that, I request all of you to please keep yourself on mute. And if you have any question, you can raise the hand. You can use the chat feature that we have. Let us try to make this a lot of interactive session. Okay. And this meeting is being recorded. Hope everybody is okay with that. All right. Thank you so much. Over to you, Raj and Shivani. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratnya.
I think Shivani froze again, unfortunately. So let's see. In the meantime, I'll let you know that Shivani is a very dear friend, very talented.
Yes,
And,
let me try
yeah,
calling her. Yes.
yeah. If you can quickly call her, or I can actually try and write it on her. Let's see. Right. So yeah, so I mean, when she comes in, I mean, we are from PRM 12. Shivani, you back? I think she might be back. And yeah, we all started in May. I guess it all starts in May still, does it? I'm not
Yeah,
100% sure.
Shivani is, yeah, she's
Yeah,
Am
back
I
now.
audible? I'm sorry, I'm going to attempt changing my place. I don't know if that is.
Yeah, you're
Am I
definitely
clear
audible
now?
now. Yeah, you are.
Yes, it's much better.
Okay. So, like I said, he has over 2 decades of experience on responsible tourism. In practice, on the ground, developing his company Social Tours as the first tour company in Asia to be sustainability certified. Raj's work ranges from training guides in more sustainable practices to educating customers on the practice of responsibility in tourism as travelers, developing more sustainable tourism offerings, as well as guiding governments and stakeholders in putting sustainable procedures into action. He additionally wears the hat of a consultant, so he's not just running social tours. He's also, a consultant where he helps governments and communities develop more sustainable practices and insert sustainability strategies in government plans. So his expertise specifically lies in advanced practice of responsible tourism. And, we will come across terms of ecotourism, sustainable tourism, conscious, ethical, even rural, as we heard Archana say. So that his advanced practices of responsible tourism, the concept of linked prosperity and sharing in tourism, how do you use a green economy model to tourism development in destination, micro destination development, inserting sustainable products into the tourism mix, and creative implementation of sustainability practices towards the overall goal of maintaining sustainability. So, from active workshops to motivational keynote speeches, Raj has pretty much done it all. So he's extremely versatile. He, of course, confesses to liking the outdoors more than doing some of the indoor stuff. that I've talked about, like consulting and motivational speeches and workshops. So, a very warm welcome to you, Raj. I'm really pleased to be able to have this conversation with you. And all of you who are listening in, I want to share that I've known Raj since 1991. And it's really been a pleasure witnessing his journey from then to where he is today. And I think the way he's conducted his life is so inspirational, especially for me. And I'm sure by the end of this hour, you all will also get a sneak peek into what makes him the human he is, and which is why I'm so proud to also call him my friend.
Oh, Shivani,
So,
that's so nice of you to say that. And it just reminded me in 91, I was, telling everybody that we started in May. And I think both of us were, I think, part of that 15 or 20, yearmans who were considered not smart enough to join at the right date. So we had to come for two weeks of additional learning before we could join, right? And
true,
that's where we
true.
bonded. So I think that's where we bonded. That's where we started with at the computer lab, I think, learning computers
Probably.
from Shivani. That's what I remember. So yeah, that was the start. Yeah.
So yeah, so talking of starts, Raj, why don't you, for everybody here, share your journey? What's it been like for you from 91 to how social tours happened to you?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was it's so much fun. There's no doubt about it. But it was also reasonably focused, I must say. What happened to me was in 93 we passed out, and I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Shivani, I might be going a bit gray here, but we had a lot of jobs come into campus. I think we had probably 180, 200 jobs that had come into campus. There was enough for all of us. We were about 60 of us, I think, if I remember correctly. And there was so many jobs that came. And of course, like every batch, we were very rebellious. We did not want to be in the sector, many of us. Also, salaries were quite low in some of the jobs, at least, was super low. And of course, the idea of trying to get a good salary was always in our heads. And just at that same time, I think India's demand for professional, executives was growing. So that meant that there was a lot of jobs that were actually being asked for. I mean, there were adverts coming in the national papers specifically asking for us. It was so zeroed in. They saying that it was, from the Western side, people who have studied rural development and management and stuff like that. So it was very, very clear they were looking for us. So in that whole game, what happened in my head was that I had this idea that I wanted to go back to a small pond, Nepal, where it was a bit more, quieter. I thought it was a little too aggressive where I was, and I wanted to do that. And thankfully, two jobs opened up, none from the placements, with Marg, a research company, and with ITC, who's running a tobacco, company here even now. They're part of it. And so both of them opened up, and they both wanted me, luckily. And I dropped the tobacco. I actually flew because the tobacco wanted an interview in Kathmandu. Flew with them, but I dropped that and joined research. So that's where I started my professional career, post IRMA. I had done some work before, but post IRMA, that was where I started in Kathmandu doing research. And that immediately, if anybody is looking for career paths, research is a good place to start because you actually start meeting everybody in the industry really fast when you go into research. And so for a year or so, I got to know all the professional big companies, all the chains, from tourism to automobiles to cigarettes to consumer durables and non-durables, even the projects that we're working here on maternity development, all were asking for research. So I got to meet all of them. And as a young executive, meeting the top guys in all these companies really helped create that network that was good for me in the future. But very quickly, I got disillusioned, as we do, as after we come out of IRMA and start jobs. And within a year, I was like, this research thing is a great skill to have, but it's a con job. You're selling the same research over and over again. There's not much research going on research itself. And that did not feel right. And so I had decided to quit by 11 months or something like that. And then I immediately went into fair trade, very interestingly, into manufacturing and fair trade. So I worked for this company which is doing very successful even now, called the Association for Craft Producers. They work with about 1,000 women who are working in crafts, and I became their export director. And so that gave me an opportunity to also travel to Europe, selling goods and stuff like that, and started giving me another path in understanding how manufacturing can actually help people. And done well, it can also earn for the country, right? So that was a very interesting experience of 2.5 years before politics entered into the organization, and the union started, not being very happy and being very complicated. So the working environment got a little bad. So I decided to quit from that, and then since then I haven't actually worked for anybody except myself. So in '96 I started a company along with a British friend called Made in Nepal. I still have that domain. I don't have the company anymore. But I started this company called Made in Nepal, which was also looking at manufacturing and fair trade, but done professionally and not done as a project. So we started manufacturing sweaters for H&M, believe it or not, which is not the world's most sustainable organization at the moment. But back then it had only started, and this was pre fast fashion. So fast fashion hadn't still come in. And they were really pleased with what we did, with hand knits to machine knits. Later on, I was traveling a lot to India. I remember meeting Shivani several times in Delhi around 97, 98, when I was buying machines from Ludhiana to bring back into Nepal. And we started making this factory, which had about 1,000 people, 98% of them women. And we were supplying about 80,000 sweaters to H&M at that time from Nepal. So it was a very proud moment to be, having established the second biggest factory in Nepal that was doing hand knits. Yeah, it was really good. But Nepal was in the middle of a Maoist struggle, and the Maoists started extorting money from businesses, and that made us need to stop that. So we stopped that in early 2000. And then, I was in limbo for a while, but that limbo led me to decide to get into tourism because, as somebody had asked me before, why did I get into tourism was because while I was doing this for H&M, my British partner, who came from a pretty decent family in the UK, had studied in quite a rich school, and he decided to bring his school to Nepal to try and do tourism, but add a little bit of money for doing development. And so the first lot that he did, we brought in 14 people. They paid $200 extra, a little bit more, I think. I think there were maybe 20 of them paid $200 extra. We got about 5 lakh Nepali rupees out of that, the extra money. And we gave it to one of the top eye centers here called Tilganga, and they conducted a cataract eye camp in the rural areas in northeast of Nepal, of Kathmandu. So going there and seeing how a little bit of money from a tourist could actually impact, somebody going blind, was in 3 days they had completely turned around, fully sighted coming back, was where the concept of tourism that would be good for social reasons, so social tourism sort of concept hit my head. And so when the bottom fell out of the manufacturing industry, I decided to get into tourism and designed everything that I'd learned, then sort of targeted into this idea of tourism. And hence, when I started social tours, I based it on principles of value-based decision making. That was a thing that was running at that time. Responsible tourism had just started. Ecotourism, responsible tourism was just concepts that were there. So I based it on very strong foundations and started a very small company, which is still small right now, and decided that I would improve on that concept continuously. And so that was the journey into tourism. And so as Nepal, we usually say that Nepal's portfolio is North India, Nepal, Tibet, and Bhutan. So we always had to have that cross-border. So that helped. And in 2016, I also joined another company in Norway. So nowadays I sell Nepal and Norway and some other countries in between too. So tourism is happening everywhere right now.
Super. Thanks, Raj. I mean, quite from research to fair trade to tourism, I think. But I think pretty much post research, you've been like entrepreneurial. So you could probably call yourself like a social entrepreneur now. So
I guess, yeah. I think it
yeah.
was somehow zeroing into that, and I think focusing on Nepal really helped me do that because I was not, being drawn
Hmm.
away somewhere else. I was very focused.
So Raj, we've heard you say a few terms like responsible tourism, social tourism. We've also come across ecotourism. So what do all these terms really mean? Are they all different terms for the
Hmm.
same thing, and where does social tours really sit in all of this?
Um, I think social tourism is not a form of tourism per se. So I know it gets called that, but what had happened in the world was all started with ecotourism as a concept, which was actually looking at conserving nature. So think of it as a list of you can tick it off and actually do the right thing in nature. That would be ecotourism. And then people realized that actually just preserving nature is not good enough. You need to actually preserve cultures as well. And you need to actually take a few steps forward in that direction. So then the idea that the traveler needs to be responsible came in. So responsible tourism came in as a concept. So it's sort of a spectrum, right? Ecotourism is smaller. Then you add the traveler and you add and then you call it responsible tourism. And so, and the growth now is moving towards saying that, no, you cannot only do that. You need to actually also use tourism for transformation so that the traveler is transformed, their thinking is transformed, as well as the destination is transformed. So it's now called transformational tourism. Yeah. And now the latest concept that everybody is working on, or some are working on, is this concept where we're saying that tourism can be used for destinations to regenerate themselves. So it's called regenerative tourism. So you bring
Hmm.
back old practices because tourism can put money into it and stuff like that. So so it's a progression. So you think about so at social tours we'll be doing all of it. So it just depends on how you take each concept and apply it. So at the end of this, I would say social tours as a company would be the practice platform for all of these concepts.
Right. So, okay, that was my question. That where do you sit in all of this? So you are
Mm,
pretty much cut across the entire spectrum, is what you're
that's
saying.
right. Yeah.
Right. Right. So in this journey of the last whatever 20 plus years that you've been doing this, or probably more in social tours. So when exactly did you start? How many years have you been with?
2002. Social Clues
Okay.
officially started in 2002. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So in these close to 25 years, what would you say have been your biggest challenges? You know.
It's, I mean, when you apply concepts, when you apply, sustainability concepts into businesses, there's always a clash, and tourism usually comes with its negatives as well. It's not 100% positive all the time. So, actually, I think the biggest challenge is one of where do you justify doing certain things? Yeah. So I think that is where the challenges always lie when you're actually looking at applying, especially sustainability principles. I think this applies across the board when you're doing development or you're doing manufacturing or you're doing anything at all, right? But when you apply sustainability, there's always the negative and the positive, and the balance is always this thing. And I think for me, that has been the only challenge, I think. The rest of it is creativity. You can create designs, you can create new products, you can do all sorts of stuff that is not so difficult to do. Uh, but uh, but justifying that and then thinking it out is where the challenges are, and that's where the fun is as well, I would say.
So just for everybody, give us an example of this challenge that and how do you really address
It's
it?
very simple.
Just
I mean,
one
I'm
example.
in Kathmandu. It's very simple. I'm in Kathmandu, and a destination that is close to here, 200 kilometers away, is Pokhara. So put it in very
Mm.
simple terms, you can fly to that place, you can take a car, you can take a bus. Yeah, obviously the flight is going to be the most polluting, but people come with different times, so you cannot force them to get into a car. So, some people need to fly, or the road is too bad, and 200 kilometers can take you 10 hours, and then it's no fun doing that. And you cannot do that twice. So we have to now start, working out an itinerary where we say you drive one way and you fly the other, and then you have to find a way to do the right thing because you spent a little bit of fuel out there, right? and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, these are really tiny things it sounds like, but then the challenges are real because then, for example, if somebody comes to Kathmandu and says, I want to stay at the Hyatt, then you have to tell them, oh, the Hyatt, maybe not. Why don't you use a local owner, because then the leakage is less. So there's so many concepts that come in when you apply sustainability, from money leakage to human rights violations or abuse that might happen in hotels or in properties across the tourism value chain, to supporting local communities, giving back, the environment aspect, the cultural aspect. There's so many issues. So those are all the little challenges that you face on an itinerary to itinerary, trip to trip basis. And I think that is where the challenge and the fun is what I will say.
No, I mean, very well put. But in all of this, I think there are so many other stakeholders who are involved. It's not just about you or companies and organizations such as
Yeah.
yourself. There's civil society, there's governments, there's the private sector. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and each one of them, of course, has to play a role. So, how do you really align across all of these stakeholders? And do you actually have to do certain things to reach out to them? Is there like a platform that you guys converge on? How does it work?
No, not really. I mean, I think this is a good time to segue into a little presentation I had, a masterclass as well, where I'll show you how the tourism value chain works and how we try to put it all together. Yeah, but just to clarify, right in the start, no, there's no platform. You've got to learn as you go. You actually just establish relationships, and I'll tell you later as well that the biggest thing that we do is actually show respect. And the respect is what starts everything. So I'll just quickly share this.
Mhm.
And I think you can see that right now.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, integrating sustainability into adventure, right? Because I work a lot in the adventure space. So I think tourism is mostly adventure right now. Everywhere that we go, I mean, the adventure of probably trying new food is an adventure. Crossing the road is an adventure in many of our countries. So there's little adventures, mini adventures happening all over the place. I mean, it's not always climbing Everest. So there's a soft adventure, hard adventure. You can go into all sorts of stuff, right? So I like to classify that as adventure. So how do you do that? Yeah, so I'll just quickly go through this. So we'll try to keep it simple. Um, the idea is that we want to retain destinations for future generations, right? This is what I mentioned about the sustainability part, right? So that the destinations can stay for longer. But actually, like I said, make them better. That is where we are trying to do trying to bring back old practices. Regeneration is all coming into this, right? So that's where the ultimate goal in this doing the sustainability exercise is to actually retain it, but actually make it better. So, but sustainability comes from a mindset. No, it has to be a mindset of positive actions. It's very clear that it has to be, like I said, if you don't have the mindset, you will not find you can't make those right choices. So that mindset is super important. And funnily enough, where you can find that mindset is in Buddhism, believe it or not. It's actually right there, which says, Om Mani Padme Hum actually says that you need to use your mind to do positive action, especially in Buddhism, it says about compassion. So compassion is a positive action, but if you don't balance the two together, you will not reach enlightenment, is what Buddhism says. So you apply that in business, then it means you use your mind, because you got a brain, to do positive actions in a continual loop so that you keep on improving. So like I said, so if a person is going by a bus this time, it's actually doing a little shared damage, which is lesser than going by plane. So the improvement is always there. I mean, to the point of walking at the end of the day, which should be the best, right? So, which is sometimes impossible, but that's a continuous loop that you need to put it in. And that's as simple as that. Now, the positive actions usually in tourism, if you simplify it, will be on environment, social, cultural, and contribution into the local economy. Because we're working in a business, so it is about how do you contribute into the local economy? Where does the money go? Really, it's very super important, right? The environmental sustainability, people understand. I talked to you about the bus, car, plane scenario, right? Or not damaging trails, not throwing garbage, that sort of stuff. The socio-cultural being retaining culture and not letting it commodify, which is also another big issue in tourism, where there's dances that are only happening once a year nowadays, happen 6 times a day, which is commodification of culture, which is unnecessary, right? So that sort of stuff is another balance that you need to work on. So there's a lot of positive action around that. Now, this is I think the important slide to actually look at, where you see the tourism value chain. And I know, Shivani, you were quite impressed with this one. So this little page shows you everything that is happening in tourism, because what you need first is regulations. This is the tourism value chain with the regulations of entering the country, or permits, or the rules of engagement of how you develop tourism products, work with communities. These are all regulations, right? There are local regulations, there are national regulations. And then, of course, the next stage is having an operator like us who plans, or a guide, or using an online tool for planning your trip. And once you do that, at each stage, at regulations also, entering a country, you pay a visa, so there's money being made. Yeah, so the tourism value chain starts already. At the planning stage, and an operator, if I design a trip, I will charge for it. So that's how I make money. And that again goes back with taxes to the government and stuff like that. And after you do that and everybody's happy with doing a trip, then we require transport to get into the place, either a plane, or a donkey, or a camel, or your feet. You somehow need transport, and that's money made there as well. And once you reach the place, you need to stay. So accommodations, whether it's a 5-star hotel, 1-star rural, homestay, whatever, you need accommodation. Then you need food. You need to eat 3 times a day, probably 4 sometimes. And that's where a lot of the tourism value chain, you can actually draw in local food, you can draw in farmers, you can draw in all sorts of stuff out there, coffee, whatever, you need a lot of things out there. And then you need a lot of manpower, because you need guides, you need drivers, you need all these people that are engaged, and at that point in time, you think sustainability for them, training, safety, even allowing them to form unions, for example, for redressing grievances and stuff like that. And then in adventure, you also need the adventurer. Of course, the person who pays for the thing also has to be sustainable. You need gear. You need the right clothing for doing adventure. So you need bags, you need shoes, you need all sorts of stuff. And you travel, anytime you travel, you need it. Of course, you need the destination. And the destination has to be, safe and sustainable. And then, of course, sometimes we don't think too much about it, but we also need entertainment, because once you travel, we entertain. You need bars, you need to go to places, and then we also need to shop. People come back with souvenirs when they travel. So all of this forms the tourism value chain. And then, of course, there are supporting services that are there, like marketing, finance. I mean, there's so many things that come in that will actually support that. So this is the direct path of a trip, but then the supporting services are also there. So it actually is very, very multi-sector, as you can see. It goes through health, education, transportation, manufacturing, all sorts of stuff, right? So in all these places, of course, you need to be sustainable. And I think that is where the key comes in. So how do we do it? This is the question you had, Shivani, right? The first thing you need to do is that you realize that there's hundreds of stakeholders, right? When we did our stakeholder analysis at the company, and we are one of the few people who actually invite, sorry about that. It's my wife's phone.
No worries. Just a minute, folks.
Sorry about that. No worries. That's going to be very irritating with that phone going on, so don't worry too much about that. Okay. So the simple format, right? I mean, we can go into very complicated fundas, and I know we like complicated fundas, but let's make it simple. The simplest way to do it is to respect all your stakeholders. And how do you provide respect to the stakeholders? It's quite simple. You pay them on time and you pay them well. Yeah, and you build really good relations with them, right? So it's very simple. So for each trip that we do, there are so many stakeholders involved, you won't believe it. There are hotels in different locations, there are guides, there are porters, there's drivers, there's vehicle companies, all of these guys need respect. And once you give them the right respect, that's how you actually start that entire process. You build them together. And what we also do is sometimes we bring them together so that they realize that we all have to work together. And I think that really helps, right? So you bring all the stakeholders together. And like I said, it's about focus. So, I told you right at the start, it's a continuous loop of improvement. So you always improve. So you keep on evaluating what you're doing and use your mind to keep on improving. So for example, when we started the company, we realized that we needed to use a lot of paper when we were making itineraries and stuff like that. So we decided to go paperless later on. But when we're using paper, we reuse the paper and then we gave it to a recycling company to actually make us visiting cards, And so we had our own little cycle of development that we actually created, it did not happen on the first day. That happened probably year 5 or something like that while we were still improving. And nowadays we don't use the paper anymore because we've gone completely digital. So, so you can actually keep on improving is what I'm trying to say. And that can happen at every stage. It happens with the guides, it happens with the drivers, it happens with cars. So, like now we're moving more into electric vehicles, for example, for moving people around. So there's a continuous improvement, right? And all of this comes from very strong values. So I started the company with 6 different values, which was talking about respect. Again, the same things actually, about being honest as a business, about the business, CSR case for businesses, because we survive because of society, but we need to give back to society because we survive because of society and stuff like that. And also, one of the funniest ones we had as business students is I had this value that I created, which said money is not the only goal. Not the goal was what I had put in, but my accountant forced me to put the only, because he said, please don't say that, because then you'll not make money at all. So I had to say, all right, money is not the only goal. And that's how we decided on our triple P, or quadruple P model eventually. And then the other thing, of course, when you're in a service industry or any industry at all, is that quality is non-compromisable. You actually make sure that that is the only thing that is marketing. The rest would be, marketing would be telling a lot of lies. But if you do quality, that's always going to stay. And that's the strongest marketing aspect. And then, like I said, again, the focus on mindfulness in operations, because everything in tourism after you plan is operations. So you need to actually make it happen. It's about delivery. And out there, you need to be mindful of everything that you do. So, for example, I'll give you an example. When you go into rural areas in Nepal, sometimes you reach hotels which have child labor happening. They might be the ones in South Asia. It's very common to have that, right? They've got some little guy who's probably cleaning the dishes. And how do you engage with that, right? I mean, you still need to do the business. You still need to take people there, and slowly you start doing an engagement process to try and weed that out. And that is how you keep on thinking about it, and mindfulness. And then, like I said, 25 years, or not yet 25, but practice and practice and practice and practice. Yeah. So it's always about having that continual loop. So I go back to that singular focus of actually using your mind to do positive action and doing a continuous loop. So I'll leave it at that, because I think that's what the question you asked, and I just wanted to just put that through.
No, clearly, thanks, Raj. I mean, the sector also, you've talked about how it's evolved itself in the last 25 years.
Shivani is frozen again.
Yes, let's wait for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, just wait a
Meanwhile,
couple.
shall we open platform for
Yeah,
discussion?
please.
This
I
time
mean,
I'm
questions, guys. That was, yeah. Anybody has questions,
Yes.
please go for it.
Audience, we are open for question and answers till Shivani returns.
I'm back. Just in
Oh,
case,
Shivani
if
Okay.
you
back.
can still have a question in
All right.
between.
No, not yet. So you can go.
Okay, I just wanted to, my question was that, since the sector has evolved pretty much in the last 20 plus years, what is your vision for it going forward? And where would you really
Yeah.
like to see it?
I mean, what is very heartening for me that I've seen is that the traveler has changed. So the demand is changing really rapidly. Um, I see the travelers are much more aligned to sustainability right now. Earlier, it used to be just a word, and people had no idea what they were talking about. There was a time when, even in the industry, when people said, "I've got an eco resort," that meant they had a few pots full of grass, in the reception, and they said, "Oh, it's eco because it's green." That sort of stuff. But right now, I think people are much more aware. I see the new generation. I mean, if you look at my children, my daughter, or her friends, I mean, they're much more aware about rights. They're aware about the world. They want to be fair. And I think that is really heartening, because businesses are driven by demand, or are forced by demand to go in a particular way. I don't believe in it. I believe in creating my own demand, but the overall flow of business is demand driven. So when the demand changes is when everything changes. So for me, I see that happening right now, and it's very heartening to see that. It's very, very heartening to see that.
That's great. Okay, just to change track slightly. I mean, those of you who follow Raj on any of the social media, uh, channels would notice that he has this hashtag called "Hate My Job." So I am very curious to know that. And then you put up these pictures of these gorgeous locales and fun stuff that everybody seems to be doing, and inspirational and aspirational stuff. So my question is this like a regular common hashtag, or is this something that you've invented specifically to remind the rest of us of our lesser exciting, or I fear to say mundane in case this reaches our others
Uh,
jobs
it's
that
a
we do?
it's a
So what's the story behind that?
it's a very fun story behind that, actually. I mean, it's a marketing idea, really. I mean, I hate my job is a marketing idea, and so I started doing hate my job as putting up really good pictures from really amazing locations around the world, wherever I am, and then putting I hate my job. And I had a lot of people. It's so funny because I get comments where people write, "I hate your job too," or who are just getting jealous. But I also had somebody write to me and said, "I don't understand why you hate your job. It is so beautiful." And they didn't get the sarcasm around it or the marketing behind. And it's catchy. And then 2 years ago, I think my Instagram got hacked, and back then I just had Raj Gyawali as my Instagram account, and then I tried to get it back, but it did not work. And then I decided, all right, screw the 3,000 followers that I had. I'll start a new hashtag called I hate my job. So new account. So now I have an Instagram account called I hate my job, and I take that through, and it's really good fun. I mean, it's so fitting to tourism and adventure. I just stumbled into it. It's no, it's not a big, bright light that happened on top of my head. Just stumbled into it, and it works really well. It's really good fun.
Awesome, awesome.
I make a lot
I
of
love
people
it.
jealous. Let's put it this way. And I particularly
Sure.
like to, I particularly like to do it on Monday mornings. So just to warn you, just to warn you. Yeah.
Okay, so we know what to expect on Monday morning if you open. So tell me, how gratifying has this journey been for you? I mean,
Um,
physically, emotionally, even financially.
Yeah, I think I couldn't be more satisfied, I must say. I mean, I think I found my calling. I found something. I always wanted to do something in sustainability, wanted to make an impact. I mean, we all talk about it, and and I must say, through somehow I stumbled into travel, because of this ICAMs that we had done. And I had some interest in adventure. I wish I had started earlier, to tell you the truth, but if I think about it now, but now I found something where I can actually touch almost any part of development, whether it's human development, whether it's country development, whether it's destination development, and change really impact real change. I mean, we deal with travelers from around the world, and we're educating them all the time. It's so much fun. I mean, we use Nepal as a tool for learning. I've got groups coming from Illinois and Ohio next month, who are working on sort of charity tourism. Again, doing stuff here in Nepal. We've taken engineers to learn about doing, actually designing for real life issues. Very interesting with Engineers Without Borders, where we took them for five days into a village to actually find real problems and find solutions to real problems, and use the villagers as the judge, not their professors. And the funniest story, and I know in South Asia will agree with this. The best solution they brought out was actually a handle inside a toilet, in an Indian squat toilet, so that old people would need that to lift themselves up. And that was the design that was approved by the village. And they said, that is a great design. We love that idea. Yeah, and it's
Very
such a simple
interesting.
thing. And you're using a platform like tourism to actually make that happen is just so much fun. So I think it has been very gratifying. I think on the financial side, I'll probably not be at the same level as many of the guys who are working in the industry from my batch or previous batches or future batches. But I also am in a principle where I believe in something called sufficiency. And I'm just doing what I need to do, and I don't need more. So there's no need to own the world for me. I just do just enough. I need to do a few holidays, make people jealous from time to time. and take my daughter through school. And so I've decided to have a positive mindset on that, and also changed my life to actually live like that. I don't own a house. I don't own a car. I've decided that I don't need it, and so I live on rent, and that actually eases my life quite a lot. So I don't need a lot. That's the thing. I need my adventure and have my fun. And I think that really helps me ground myself to exactly what I want to do. So that part of it is super gratifying. I don't know what the future holds. I might break a leg and not be able to work. And, in South Asia, we don't have a lot of pension systems and stuff like that. So the things could change. But until now, excellent. There's no doubt about it. I have nothing to regret. And applying what I've learned quite a lot. I must say the business part of what I learned in IRMA, I was unlearning a lot because that is I'm not a communist or I'm not a liberalist that is actually completely anti-capitalism, but I think that what we learn in business is actually very capitalistic, and it's very about minimizing cost to maximize profit. And I'm actually just turning that in its head and saying, no, it is actually optimizing it. And if you look at optimal models, then you can actually do things quite differently. And use more of improvement as a mechanism for business development rather than growth, rather than financial growth. So, I mean, so these little, applying all these things are really good fun, is what I must say. Yeah. And as I get older, I enjoy it even more. So, yes, super gratifying is what I would say.
Fantastic. And I've always been very, very inspired by your sufficiency theory.
Mm.
And so, I mean, it's fantastic to be able to live like that. How does that impact your personal life, and how does the family respond to that?
Oh, I'm very lucky that way. I must say, I'm very lucky that way. My wife also runs this cafe, in Kathmandu. I mean, my wife is Austrian. She came here for a year in 2002 and never left. I must say, I think that's the way I like to put it. And so now she does her work in coffee. Runs two cafes here, and she works with over 1,000 farmers. And she's already been. A documentary has been made on her approach on circular economies on National Geographic and stuff like that. And she also kind of believes in the similar principles. So that the two of us match very well on that ground. I think sufficiency works out there. It's sometimes difficult because when we think of when we grow older, what's going to happen and stuff like that, then we have a little, we talk a little bit about it. But I think we are okay. My daughter is 16. I mean, she's just going through school right now, and I think. When she was younger, it was a little bit more, why don't we have a car? Why don't we have, that sort of stuff used to be there. But I think she understands it. I think the next generation understands these concepts much better than we used to, because we were built and educated differently. And, our goals were more on growth, and we had to show in society what we have achieved and stuff like that. When you don't apply that, you free yourself from a lot of issues and, needs. So that helps me quite a lot. Yeah. So it works, I must
Awesome.
say. So far, it
Mm.
works. I don't know about the
Mm.
future, but it works right now.
So your wife and your daughter have also been apparently major inspirations in you getting into other kinds of allied activities like diving, etc. Is that right? So
That is so
what's
true.
that?
Yeah.
What's the story
So
there?
yeah, so I mean, what happened was, I think 2 years ago, I was asked to lead a trip in the Balkans for some media. So I went in May and did that in the Balkans. It was amazing to go to Kosovo, Albania, North Macedonia, and lead a trip where I'd never led a trip before, and also learn more about what I could do with my skill sets in other countries. But it led to a little bit of jealousy at the house. So my wife and daughter decided to do a revenge trip after that and went diving. So they went to learn how to become party divers. So they decided, and they loved it a lot. And they went again a little later and became advanced divers. So it was my turn that was coming on. And so this year, this last January, we went to Thailand, and I did about 14 dives. Was really amazing. So I've now discovered another another thing to make people jealous. So which is excellent. So yeah, that's going to continue as well. Yeah. So it works really well. I think adventure is somehow ingrained in this family somehow a little bit. And we like to keep on experimenting with things that we can do.
Great. So you're going to have to deal with me as I walk with my laptop because of the internet. I had to change my position and I did not have my charger, but I do have it now. But
Yeah,
I will ask my question as I walk around the house.
don't worry.
So,
You get a tour of your
so
house
Raj,
too.
now tell me one thing. Now, I, you are on magazine covers. Okay, I think I've seen you on magazine covers. I've seen you on pretty much every platform, and you're quite this big shot guy in the tourism sector. But you
Not at
also
all.
have this clear disdain for dressing formally. So for all you Irmans over there, I've never seen him in anything except shorts. So so how do you get by in some of the forums, in the work that you do? How does it work?
It's funny. I mean, in my company at Social Tours, if I ever wore jeans, people said, "Where's the party?" So, it was always like that. And thankfully, I live in Kathmandu, which in worst winters will be just a couple of months, so it doesn't really matter. I'm always wearing shorts. Wearing shorts right now. I mean, that's how I live. So it's very casual, but I think once you do it often enough, you become the oddity, right? So you've created a record. So people are quite surprised if they ever see me in wearing trousers. And so I go to the National Tourism Board like this. I don't mind. I go into meetings, and they all accept it. And I've tried to make a statement. I think one of the first interviews I had after I started the company, was about tourism in Nepal and responsible tourism. And the article was actually Nepal is not a necktie destination. So I decided that tourism is not about wearing neckties and suits and looking like penguins. It is about actually just having a casual style. And I think that is super important that we actually feel comfortable with what we wear. And I think I've just been lucky that I'm in adventure that I can actually apply that. I'm quite sure I wouldn't if I was in the corporate world, so I'd be forced into, tying myself down, but I don't have to, and that's a blessing. I mean, I know you've seen me in very, very colorful shorts in Irma, and that's what we used to do. So, and that was a sort of a signature, and I think that is sort of kind of continued because of the industry that I'm in. Adventure is all about that. Kathmandu is all about that. You can get into a nightclub wearing shorts; it's not an issue. So, it's about adventure, and so yeah. I love it. Absolutely love that.
Super. So now we're closing in on an hour, so I'm going to loop this discussion back to Irma. So just a couple of questions more. So one is, I mean, I actually want to understand, what's the kind of role that Irma has played in this journey of yours. And, I remember once you and I were talking and you mentioned that one of your weakest subjects at Irma was finance.
True.
And, as an entrepreneur, I mean, I know your goal is not your own goal is not only to make money, but
Yeah.
still one has to get by. So
Yeah.
how did you manage that? And
It's a bit like I think Irma did play a very important role. I mean, getting an exposure on how business functions and how that is connected to development has been used. Like I said, I unlearned a lot of things, especially the marketing side of it and the business side of it. There's some unlearning that is happening, but I think there was other aspects of actually connecting business to development that has been quite strong influence from Irma. And I think we learned that, and especially even when we went into our induction, when we went into the villages and stuff like that, there was a really good way to learn how to do that. And I think that did influence. It was in the back of my head when I was actually working, when I was doing my trade part of work, and now in the fair travel part of work. So it did have a very strong influence, I must say. So just that little twist, it wasn't much of a twist, but it was a twist, and that twist really helped. Just to get that thing, that business for development. And I think this is where the sustainability really stands. And I think that came from Irma. So I think that for that, I'm really grateful of that experience, because otherwise I had studied agriculture, I had gone into, I mean, as soon as you study anything technical, what I realized is that you get into management positions and then you cannot apply your technique. So it was kind of useless that I had an agriculture degree and I was running a farm. I mean, it made no sense until I had a business angle to it, right? So Irma really closed that gap for me. That really helped. Yeah.
great, great. And anything you recall from your days there? Anything funny? Anything moving? Any incident that you might remember?
A lot of bhang, I must remember, that we used to. I think the funniest thing we ever did, and I recall this, and I keep mentioning this, was we actually ordered a parcel of bhang, 1 kilo of it from Bhopal. It came via courier. So
Really?
yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
because you couldn't find it in Gujarat. So, we had to get it from Bhopal, and I know exactly who did it. I'll not mention it right now. So, unless he gets caught right now, but that was probably a crime. But anyway, so we managed to get that. And I think it was that year when I had an accident. So we were on this motorcycle trip to Somnath, and I had an accident, and both my knees were bust. And so it was getting really complicated to play Holi. And so I had to put plastic bags on my knees to try and cover my knees so that it'll be waterproof. And of course, the bang helped quite a lot. Yeah. So I guess those are those. I mean, I think the best memories you have are the things that you're not supposed to do, I guess.
I see a few people in the group from some older batches, so I'm sure they're
Yeah.
nodding away and
Probably
having a bit
probably
of a
relate a
chuckle.
little bit to that
Yeah,
sort of, right?
and
Yeah.
the newer ones as well.
Yeah, for sure,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, one final question to you before we open it to questions is that do you have any advice for, young people who want to enter the sector?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it doesn't matter. I think what I've learned through doing this journey applies almost to any sector, actually. I think it is about having some sort of focus and not, going all over the place. I mean, all over the place is also good, but when you go across from different sectors, you learn a lot. But if you keep on learning the goal, then it works really well. But I think that is probably my best message, is to have some sort of passion and take that forward. And if you have that, then it keeps on growing. I mean, what I've learned in business is that if you are passionate about what you do, money comes to you. It does not, you don't have to search for it. Sometimes when you're searching for money, you don't find the passion, and then you lead a really uncomfortable life that you really don't want, but you're earning a lot. So I think it is very important to value quality of life, and if you can combine that with what you do, passion is the way to take it. So discovering what you're passionate about is very important in that. It can change. You can move it around. That's not a problem. But if you have that, then it'll come to you. That's what I really think. And it applies. It has applied to me. I don't think it's a miracle. And I know it applies to a lot of other people as well. So when people are looking for jobs, then don't get too distracted with the money. Try and go with what you're passionate about, is what I would say.
Great. And on that note, I think we will. Thanks a lot, Raj. We'll open it out to questions if there are
Great
any.
fun.
Rajna, are there any in the chat? Otherwise, people can just unmute and ask.
Yes, we have a couple of questions in chat. So first one is, this
Well, I got
is from
some.
Anand.
Yeah.
Good governance is success recipe for any business, and more so in the service sector. Do you want to spread out franchisee or branches? Say in Bhutan to
Bhutan.
begin with. That's the first
Oh,
question.
no, is the answer. Because I don't believe in that sort of growth. I don't need that growth. So again, back to the sufficiency model, I'd rather see Social Tools grow as a company and improve itself and become a shining beacon rather than expand into different countries. I really don't need that. So I think that'll just reduce my quality of life, and I'd rather not have that happening. So yeah,
All
that was
right.
an easy answer.
Yeah. The next question is, how did the business adjust to the pandemic?
Oh, yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. So the pandemic hit us hard. There's no doubt about it. It hit travel. I think travel was probably the industry that was hit the hardest in the world, because movement was stopped, right? So that affected us a lot. But what was interesting was I had a team of 12 at that point in time, and we managed to have a little bit of we had a little bit of a pot for a rainy day in the company, and that helped us take it along for another year. But by the end of the year, it became really difficult to retain staff. And then it got a little messy. The company got completely wiped out, and there was no more staff as well. And by 21, I had to restart everything from scratch. I thankfully had the patience to wait. That was okay. And also, what really helped was, all the years of creating a track record of, being sustainable, being helpful, being a little bit of a crisis, managing crises in travel because we had the earthquake before and stuff like that. All that track record really helped. And that meant that even local people, expats who are in town or people coming from India, they really needed, help. So a little bit of business kept trickling in. So what really helped was, in a funny sort of way, not having the staff anymore really reduced the overheads. And when the overheads went down, then even less business could actually sustain the company. And moving forward, we've actually gone into more gig-based jobs for other people, and hence we have decided that we'll keep the overhead down so that will be a much more trim operation that is working forward. And so a little pivot, and it helps a lot. But on the other side, we've done several pivots after the pandemic because we had too much time in our hands and could also take on some of the passion projects that I had of working in sustainability and tech. So now we've built a tech platform that is measuring, carbon and social and environmental and social economic impact of travel. And we present that to every traveler. So trying to change travelers by being more transparent. So I could take on that passion project. I would also take on a publication project that we had of really doing storytelling around the world. So we've got another platform called Travel that actually does that around the world. And so there was a lot of pivots and fun as well around what I was doing. Thankfully, I didn't have to change from what I was doing. And thankfully, my experience in doing crisis communications communications during crisis for travel really helped because I was doing trainings for companies in Sri Lanka, but sitting in my room in Kathmandu. So I was still working as a consultant, telling people how to deal with the pandemic and travel and how to communicate that with travelers and stuff like that. So it was a learning time as well. Thankfully, it didn't go too long. Otherwise, I might have to change sectors.
I'm glad you didn't need to do that. Any other questions? All right, then back to you, Pradnya, to close
Thank
the
you.
session then.
Yeah, Raj, I actually have one question.
Yeah,
Uh,
great.
yeah, first of all, very interesting conversation that we had. And my question is, how do you promote local things? So you have mentioned that people ask for a five-star hotel, and how do you convince them to stay in a homestay?
Yeah, it's actually the technique out there is to actually put more focus on an experience rather than on the facility. So, I mean, I think that is where the convincing really happens. It doesn't always work because some people are, people are people, and some people have, their focus is on where they're staying and on facilities. And some of them are on the experience. So when you talk to a traveler and say, do you want the experience or do you want to just have a nice sleep? Then most people will immediately I'll probably go for the experience. And that way you can actually turn them around, right? And then, then the local part of it comes in. I think a lot of travel is about experiences. When people really break it down to think about it, you want to create memories. So if we channel that into the local stuff that is there, then people will opt for it. Yeah, that's what we find at least. It doesn't always work. So there's no one formula in travel because you're dealing with hundreds of different people with different thinking, right? So you have to adjust it all the time.
Of course. Thank you so much. We have few more questions. How did you land up in IRMA, Raj?
Pardon me?
How did you land up in IRMA?
All right.
Shubhankar Sengupta.
Yeah, that was it was actually quite interesting because I had done agriculture from Kerala. And after that, like I said, I was running a farm in Mizoram, believe it or not, working for the government there. And then I realized that I needed a management degree. And when I read about that and I was looking at possibilities of doing a business degree with some sort of developmental side, IRMA was the only thing that popped out back in the day. So I had to do it twice. I flunked the first time, and I went up to the interview stage and I got dumped. And on the second try, I went back into the interviews that happened in Kolkata, and I think I was a little too confident because I already had the job and everything, so they took me in because I think I came out a little bit more confident than trying to get into IRMA. And they said, all right, this guy is a little too confident. Maybe he should go into IRMA. So they got me in. So that's how I landed into IRMA. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Next question is, what's the name of carbon credit platform?
All right, that's called Stomp. So if you want to go and check it out, it's called stomp.travel is the website. And that's where we actually have created a software where you can actually engage with travelers and stakeholders and put it all together.
Okay. Next question is from Anjali. Anjali is asking, are there other organizations also who are going big on the concept? How do you see the future? Since this concept is very niche.
Yeah, it is true, but it's growing, and I think there are more and more organizations that are moving in this direction. There are some really large ones that are moving. Interpret, I think, is one which is actually really global and working quite hard on the principle of sustainability, and one of the few companies which also measures its impact in the world. So, but the interesting thing is in today's world, things that are niche right now don't remain niche tomorrow. Things move much more rapidly than before. I mean, I know in IRMA we learn about concepts like multiplier effects or exponential, but nowadays it's not exponential; it's viral. No, so it goes from 1 to 1,000,000. It can actually move really fast. So so I see the growth happening in a much more rapid way as both businesses understand the value of sustainability, and on the other side, the people who utilize those businesses, the travelers, are also understanding it. So, with this generational shift that is happening and thinking shifts that are happening, I think it's going to move much more rapidly than before. That's what I think.
All right. Thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing your experience. Do we have any more questions? All the audience, you can unmute yourselves and ask the question.
I think they've fallen asleep, like in class.
Okay. Raj has also shared his number on this platform. If you want
Yeah.
to connect with him separately, you can.
Yeah, that
Okay.
number is also on Viber and WhatsApp and stuff like that. So feel free to write to me. It's never an issue.
Yes. Thank you so much. Now we are towards the end of the session, and I would like to thank Raj for sharing such pearls of wisdom, such good stories, and educating us as well on how to have a sustainable tourism. At least next time I plan my travel, I'll think, okay, am I saving enough carbon or not? Or am I wasting too much? And how can I go from global to local? And how can I be more uh, towards the experiential thing rather than the good sleep thing? So yes, thank you so much. I would also like to thank Shivani, our moderator. She has been exceptionally well, and I understand she has been facing a little problems, and we also got her house tour.
Oh dear.
But yeah, the kind of questions that you asked kept us engaging, and they were very, very relevant. And thank you so much for that. And last but
My
not the
pleasure.
last, uh, our audience for joining us, for giving your 1 hour and making this session a great success. Thank you so much. This meeting will be uploaded on YouTube, and you can find it in IAA Talks, IRMA Talks. Okay. Thank you so much. And
Thanks a
this is
lot.
the
Thanks a lot.
conclusion of the session.
Thank
Yeah, it
you.
was a
Bye,
real
everyone.
pleasure. It was a real pleasure. Thanks, Shivani.
Yeah.
You rock.
Thanks, Raj.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.